Welcome, mythology enthusiasts and curious minds alike. You're about to embark on an extraordinary journey through the primordial mists of time, where chaos gave birth to cosmos, where titans wrestled with gods, and where the very foundations of reality were forged in divine fire. Today, we begin our comprehensive exploration of Greek mythology's chronological history, starting from the absolute beginning. Before Zeus ever hurled his first thunderbolt, before Athena sprang from her father's head, before heroes walked the earth seeking glory. This isn't just another retelling of familiar myths. This is the complete chronological tapestry, woven from the earliest cosmogonic traditions to the twilight of the heroic age. We're going to witness the birth of the universe itself, meet the primordial forces that shaped reality, and follow the divine dynasties as they rise and fall in eternal cycles of power and vengeance. Picture this: absolute nothingness, not darkness, because darkness implies the absence of light, and light doesn't exist yet. Not silence, because silence requires the absence of sound, and sound hasn't been conceived. This is chaos, the primordial void that existed before existence itself had meaning. From this infinite abyss, creation will emerge not through careful planning or divine wisdom, but through the raw primal forces of generation and desire. The ancient Greeks understood something profound about origins, that before order comes disorder, before beauty comes raw power, before harmony comes conflict. Their creation myth doesn't begin with a perfect deity crafting a perfect world. It begins with chaos, and from that chaos, everything you think you know about Greek mythology will unfold in ways both beautiful and terrible. But here's what makes this journey truly fascinating. The Greeks didn't just create stories, they created a living cosmology, a universe where every mountain had its nymph, every river its god, every human emotion its divine representation. These weren't just tales told around fires. They were the Greeks' attempt to understand the fundamental forces that govern reality itself. So settle in, because we're about to witness the birth of everything. We'll see how, from the primordial void, came Gaia, the earth herself, who would become both mother and lover, creator and destroyer. We'll watch as Tartarus opens its maw in the deepest depths, as Eros sparks the first desires that will drive all creation forward, and as Erebus and Nyx establish the eternal dance between darkness and night. This is where it all begins, not with a bang, but with a yawn of infinite possibility. The story of Greek mythology starts here, in the time before time, when the universe itself was learning how to exist. And trust me, what emerges from this primordial soup will reshape everything you thought you knew about gods, monsters, and the eternal struggle between order and chaos. From chaos came the first generation of primordial deities, beings so fundamental to existence that they didn't rule reality. They were reality. Gaia emerged as the broad-breasted earth, the solid foundation upon which all life would flourish. But she didn't emerge alone. Tartarus yawned open as the deepest abyss, a prison realm that would one day hold the most dangerous beings in creation. Eros materialized as the driving force of attraction and generation, not yet the cherubic love god of later traditions, but a cosmic principle that would compel all beings toward union and reproduction. From the darkness came Erebus, the primordial darkness itself, and his sister Nyx, the personification of night. These weren't mere abstractions. They were active forces with will and desire, and that desire would drive the next phase of creation. Erebus and Nyx came together in the first divine union, and from their coupling came Ether, the bright upper air, and Hemera, the day. Already we see the pattern that will define all Greek mythology: generation through union, often between siblings, creating the fundamental dualities that structure reality. But Gaia, the Earth, had her own ambitions. She didn't wait for a consort. She generated Uranus, the starry sky, from herself. She created the mountains and the sea through her own power. Gaia was demonstrating something crucial about the Greek understanding of creation. It's fundamentally generative, driven by the urge to bring forth new life, new possibilities, new complexities. When Gaia did unite with Uranus, the sky she had created, their children would be the first generation of Titans, beings of immense power who would rule the cosmos long before Zeus and his Olympian siblings were even conceived. But this wasn't a peaceful domestic arrangement. Uranus, the sky, would cover Gaia completely every night, and from their constant union came children that would terrify even their father. First came the Titans themselves, Oceanus, the world-encircling river, Chaos and Cryos, whose domains were intelligence and leadership, Hyperion, who would father the sun, moon, and dawn, Iapetus, who would sire the famous Prometheus, Theia, goddess of sight and the shining light of the clear blue sky, Rhea, who would become the mother of the Olympian gods, Themis, the personification of divine order and law, Mnemosyne, memory itself, Phoebe, associated with prophecy and the moon, Tethys, wife to Oceanus and mother of the river gods, and finally Kronos, the youngest and most cunning, who would one day overthrow his father and rule the cosmos himself. But the Titans weren't Gaia and Uranus's only children. They also produced the Cyclopes, Brontes, Steropes, and Arges, giants with single eyes in the center of their foreheads, who would become the master craftsmen of divine weapons. And then came the Hecatonchires, the 100-handed ones, Cottus, Briareus, and Gyges, beings of such immense strength that each possessed 50 heads and 100 arms. Now here's where the first great cosmic conflict begins, setting the pattern for all the divine struggles that would follow. Uranus looked upon these last children, the Cyclopes and Hecatonchires, and was horrified by their monstrous strength and appearance. So he did what would become a recurring theme in Greek mythology. He tried to prevent his own overthrow by destroying his children. Uranus seized the Cyclopes and Hecatonchires and thrust them back into Gaia's womb, into the dark places of the earth, refusing to let them see the light. This caused Gaia immense pain, but it also filled her with rage. She understood that her husband feared his own children, and that this fear would drive him to ever greater cruelties. So Gaia devised a plan that would echo through every generation of divine rulers. She created the first weapon ever forged, a great sickle made of adamant, an unbreakable divine metal. Then she gathered her Titan children and made them a proposition. Which of them would be brave enough to castrate their father and free their imprisoned siblings? Most of the Titans recoiled in horror at the suggestion, but Kronos, the youngest and most ambitious, stepped forward. He took the adamantine sickle from his mother's hands and agreed to the terrible deed. That night, when Uranus came to cover Gaia as he did every evening, Kronos was waiting. With one swift stroke, he severed his father's genitals and cast them into the sea. The consequences of this act would reverberate through all of creation. From the blood of Uranus that fell upon Gaia sprang the Erinyes, the Furies who would pursue those guilty of crimes against family, the giants who would one day war against the Olympian gods, and the Meliae, the ash tree nymphs who would become the mothers of the Bronze Age race of men. But perhaps most significantly, where Uranus's severed genitals fell into the sea, the foam and churning waters gave birth to Aphrodite, the goddess of love and beauty. From an act of the most brutal violence came the deity who would represent the most irresistible attraction. This is Greek mythology in its essence. Beauty emerging from horror, love born from violence, creation springing from destruction. Kronos had won the first divine revolution, but in doing so, he had established a pattern that would haunt him. He had proven that children could overthrow their parents, that the younger generation could seize power from the elder, and like his father before him, Kronos would soon learn to fear his own offspring. With Uranus defeated and cast down, Kronos assumed rulership of the cosmos, beginning what would later be remembered as the Golden Age. He freed his Cyclopes and Hecatoncheire's siblings from their earthly prison, though he would later come to fear and imprison them himself. He married his sister Rhea, continuing the pattern of sibling unions that characterized divine reproduction. Under Kronos's rule, the world was indeed golden. Humans lived without toil or suffering, the earth produced food without cultivation, and death came only as a gentle sleep after centuries of life. There was no war, no crime, no want. But Kronos carried within him the seed of his own destruction, the knowledge that he had gained his throne through patricide, and the growing fear that his own children would do the same to him. This fear was confirmed when Gaia and Uranus, in one of their final prophetic utterances, warned Kronos that one of his children would overthrow him just as he had overthrown his father. The curse of the generations had been established, and Kronos found himself trapped in the same pattern of fear and violence that had driven his father to such extremes. His solution was characteristically brutal and seemingly foolproof. He would devour each of his children the moment they were born. When Rhea gave birth to their first child, Hestia, Kronos snatched the infant and swallowed her whole. When Demeter was born, she too disappeared down her father's throat. Hera followed, then Hades, then Poseidon. Each time, Rhea was forced to watch helplessly as her husband destroyed their children in his paranoid attempt to preserve his power. But Rhea, like her mother Gaia before her, reached a breaking point. When she became pregnant with her sixth child, she devised a plan that would echo her mother's cunning. She secretly travelled to Crete to give birth, hiding in a cave on Mount Ida. There she delivered Zeus, the child who would indeed fulfill the prophecy and overthrow his father. But Rhea needed to deceive Kronos about this birth. So she wrapped a stone in swaddling clothes and presented it to her husband as their newborn son. Kronos, perhaps blinded by his own paranoia and haste, swallowed the stone without noticing the deception. Meanwhile, the real Zeus was being raised in secret by the nymphs of Crete, fed on the milk of the goat Amalthea and honey from sacred bees. The young Zeus grew to maturity hidden from his father's sight, but he was not content to remain in hiding forever. The time would come when he would return to challenge Kronos, to free his swallowed siblings, and to begin the greatest war the cosmos had yet seen, the Titanomachy, the war between the Titans and the Olympians that would determine the final shape of the divine order. But that, dear listeners, is where our first installment concludes. We've witnessed the birth of the universe from primordial chaos, seen the first generation of divine beings emerge and establish the fundamental forces of reality, and watched as the pattern of generational conflict was established through the rise and fall of Uranus and the ascension of Kronos. We've seen how Greek mythology isn't just a collection of colourful stories, but a sophisticated cosmology that attempts to explain the deepest questions of existence. Where did the universe come from? What drives the cycle of creation and destruction? How do power and fear corrupt even the mightiest beings? And why do children seem destined to surpass and replace their parents? These themes, the inevitability of change, the corrupting nature of power, the creative potential of conflict, and the eternal struggle between order and chaos, will continue to resonate throughout every story we'll explore in this series. From these primordial beginnings will emerge the rich tapestry of gods and heroes, monsters and mortals that make Greek mythology the most enduring and influential mythological system in Western culture. The stage is now set for the next great act in our cosmic drama. The rise of Zeus, the war of the Titans, and the establishment of the Olympian order that would define Greek religion and culture for over a millennium. The primordial age is ending, and the classical age of Greek mythology is about to begin. Zeus's moment had arrived. Hidden away on the island of Crete, nurtured by nymphs and fed on ambrosia and nectar, the youngest son of Cronus had grown into something his father never anticipated: hope with a thunderbolt. But this wasn't going to be some quick family reunion. No awkward holiday dinner where Zeus just casually mentions, "Hey Dad, remember when you tried to eat me?" This was war brewing on a cosmic scale, and Zeus knew he'd need more than just daddy issues and divine power to take down the Titan who'd ruled for eons. See, Cronus wasn't just any tyrant. He was the guy who'd literally swallowed his own children whole. That takes a special kind of commitment to staying in power. But here's the thing about tyranny. It creates enemies everywhere, and Zeus was about to collect on some very old debts. First stop, freeing his siblings, because nothing says family bonding like being vomited up after years of digestive captivity. Zeus tricked Cronus into drinking a special concoction, think ancient Greek Pepto-Bismol with a twist, that forced him to regurgitate Hestia, Demeter, Hera, Hades, and Poseidon. Imagine that family reunion. Hey everyone, sorry you spent years in Dad's stomach. Who's ready to overthrow the cosmic order? But Zeus wasn't done collecting allies. Deep in the earth, imprisoned in Tartarus since Uranus's reign, were the Cyclopes and the Hundred-Handed Ones. These weren't just any prisoners. These were cosmic weapons manufacturers and living siege engines. The Cyclopes, grateful for their freedom, forged Zeus his iconic thunderbolt, Poseidon his trident, and Hades his helmet of invisibility. The Hundred-Handed Ones? Well, when you need someone to throw mountains like baseballs, you call them. Meanwhile, Cronus wasn't exactly sitting around waiting for his children to file a complaint with cosmic HR. He rallied the Titans, his brothers and sisters who'd ruled alongside him. This was the old guard, the establishment, the "we've always done it this way" crowd. Atlas, Prometheus, Epimetheus, and the rest lined up for what would become the ultimate generational conflict. And so began the Titanomachy, 10 years of warfare that made every human conflict look like a playground disagreement. Picture this: mountains being hurled like snowballs, lightning bolts raining down like cosmic artillery, and earthquakes that split continents. The very foundations of reality shook. This wasn't just war. This was the universe renovating itself through violence. The fighting was so intense that it threatened to tear apart the fabric of existence itself. Gaia, the earth, groaned under the weight of the conflict. The seas boiled. The sky cracked. For a decade, the outcome remained uncertain. The Titans had experience and raw power. The Olympians had youth, innovation, and those handy Cyclopes-forged weapons. But here's where Zeus showed he wasn't just another pretty face with a lightning bolt. He understood something Cronus never did: the power of liberation. While Cronus ruled through fear and oppression, Zeus freed the imprisoned and gave them stake in the new order. Those Cyclopes and Hundred-Handed Ones didn't just fight for Zeus, they fought for a cosmos where they wouldn't be chained in darkness. The turning point came when the Hundred-Handed Ones unleashed their full fury. Imagine beings with 50 heads and 100 arms each, picking up boulders the size of hills and machine gunning them at the Titan forces. It was like bringing nuclear weapons to a sword fight. The Titans, for all their power, couldn't match this concentrated assault. When the dust settled, and we're talking cosmic dust here, the old order lay in ruins. Most of the Titans were cast into Tartarus, that primordial prison in the depths of the earth. Atlas got the special punishment of holding up the heavens for eternity. Prometheus would later get his own memorable sentence involving an eagle and daily liver consumption, but that's another story. Zeus and his siblings divided up the cosmos like the world's most consequential game of rock, paper, scissors. Zeus claimed the sky and became king of the gods. Poseidon took the seas. Hades got the underworld. And honestly, someone had to manage the dead. The earth remained common territory, though Hestia would tend the hearth and Demeter would oversee the harvest. But victory brought new challenges. With great power comes great cosmic responsibility, and Zeus quickly learned that ruling the universe was like herding cats. If cats could control earthquakes and had serious personality disorders. This wasn't the end of conflict either. The earth itself, Gaia, wasn't entirely pleased with how things turned out. She'd helped create these powerful beings, and now her Titan children were imprisoned. So she decided to try again, giving birth to the Gigantes, giants specifically designed to challenge the Olympians. Because apparently, the universe runs on sequels. Then there was Typhon, a monster so terrifying that when he first appeared, most of the Olympians fled to Egypt and hid in animal form. Picture Zeus, king of the gods, temporarily transformed into a ram and thinking, maybe ruling the universe wasn't such a great career choice after all. But Zeus rallied, faced Typhon in single combat, and buried him under Mount Etna. To this day, when that volcano erupts, the Greeks say it's just Typhon having a temper tantrum. The establishment of Olympian rule marked a fundamental shift in the Greek cosmic order. Gone were the days of primordial chaos and Titan brutality. The Olympians brought structure, but also complexity. They had personalities, emotions, petty rivalries, and soap opera-level drama. They interfered in mortal affairs, played favourites, and generally acted like an immortal dysfunctional family with unlimited power. Zeus himself embodied this new order's contradictions. He was the upholder of justice and the protector of guests, but also a serial adulterer who couldn't keep his hands off mortal women. He maintained cosmic balance while creating chaos through his romantic escapades. He was the father figure of the gods who'd overthrown his own father and would spend eternity paranoid about his own children doing the same to him. This paranoia wasn't unfounded. Prophecies warned that a son of Zeus would eventually overthrow him, just as he'd overthrown Cronus, who'd overthrown Uranus. When Zeus learned that his first wife, Metis, was pregnant with a child who might challenge him, he did what any rational cosmic ruler would do. He swallowed her whole, because apparently the apple doesn't fall far from the Titan tree. But Metis was already pregnant with Athena, who would later spring fully grown from Zeus's head, armed and ready for battle. Talk about a splitting headache. The Olympian age was dawning, and with it came a new chapter in the cosmic story. The gods would walk among mortals, fall in love with them, quarrel with them, and shape their destinies. Heroes would rise to challenge fate itself. Great cities would honor the gods with temples and sacrifices. And through it all, the echoes of that original conflict, child overthrowing parent, new overthrowing old, would continue to resonate through every myth, every legend, every story the Greeks would tell about the divine forces that shaped their world. The age of Titans was over. The age of Olympians had begun, and the universe would never be the same. Now we're entering the heart of our journey through Greek mythology, where the first generation of divine power gives way to a new order that will shape both heaven and earth for millennia to come. The cosmic dust has settled from those primordial battles. The Titans lie imprisoned in Tartarus. Typhon and his monstrous kin have been defeated, but this isn't the end of the story. It's the true beginning. Picture this. Mount Olympus, that cloud-wreathed peak touching the very dome of heaven. now serves as the gleaming palace of a new dynasty. Zeus, having proven his supremacy through warfare and cunning, doesn't simply rule alone. No, the king of the gods understands something crucial about power. It must be shared, organized, distributed among those capable of wielding it responsibly. And so begins the age of the Olympian pantheon, 12 mighty deities whose personalities, passions, and petty squabbles will echo through every corner of human experience. But here's what makes this era fascinating. These aren't the distant, unknowable forces of the primordial age. These are gods with distinctly human characteristics, complete with jealousies, love affairs, family drama, and personal vendettas. They're powerful beyond mortal comprehension, yes, but they're also relatable in ways that chaos or Nyx never could be. They fall in love, they hold grudges, they make mistakes, they play favourites. In many ways, they're like a cosmic soap opera, if soap operas could reshape continents and alter the course of fate itself. Zeus claims his throne not through birthright alone, but through a combination of strategic thinking, raw power, and political acumen that would make Machiavelli proud. His first order of business, dividing up the cosmos with his brothers, in a move that will define the structure of reality itself. The three sons of Kronos cast lots to determine their domains. Zeus wins the heavens and becomes king of gods and mortals alike. Poseidon claims the seas, all the waters that flow and surge across the earth. Hades, perhaps drawing the short straw, receives the underworld, though as we'll see, this realm of the dead proves far more significant than anyone initially imagined. But ruling the cosmos requires more than just three brothers with anger management issues. Zeus, displaying wisdom that occasionally surfaces between his legendary romantic escapades, assembles a council of 12 major deities. Each will govern specific aspects of existence, creating a divine bureaucracy that's part parliament, part family reunion, and part reality TV show. Hera, Zeus's wife and queen of the gods, presides over marriage and family life. The irony here is delicious. She's married to the most serially unfaithful deity in the pantheon, leading to some of mythology's most dramatic domestic disputes. Hera's jealousy isn't just personal pettiness. It's the cosmic principle of marriage defending itself against constant assault. Athena springs fully grown from Zeus's head, wearing armor and brandishing a spear, because apparently even divine birth can't be straightforward in this family. She becomes the goddess of wisdom, strategic warfare, and crafts. Basically, she's the deity you want on your side when you need to both win a battle and figure out how to rebuild afterward. Apollo, the golden god of music, poetry, prophecy, and the sun itself, brings artistic inspiration and divine knowledge to the world. His twin sister Artemis governs the hunt and the moon, preferring the company of her band of nymphs to the complicated relationships that seem to plague everyone else on Olympus. Aphrodite, born from the sea foam created by Uranus's severed, well, you remember that story, becomes the goddess of love and beauty. Her very presence can start wars or end them, depending on where she directs her attention. She's married to Hephaestus, the craftsman god who forges everything from Zeus's thunderbolts to the most delicate jewelry. But she's definitely not the settling down type. Ares, the god of war, represents the brutal, chaotic side of conflict, all blood and fury, and the clash of bronze on bronze. Unlike his half-sister Athena, who embodies strategic warfare, Ares is pure violence, the berserker rage that can turn the tide of battle or destroy everything in its path. Demeter controls the harvest, the growing seasons, the very fertility of the earth itself. When she's happy, the world blooms. When she's not, well, let's just say that winter becomes a very real possibility, and not just the calendar kind. Hermes, perhaps the most likable of the Olympians, serves as messenger of the gods. guide of souls to the underworld, and patron of travelers, merchants, and thieves. Yes, thieves. The gods have a sense of humor about these things. And then there's Dionysus, the god of wine, ecstasy, and divine madness. He's often considered the newest member of the 12, having been born from Zeus's thigh in one of mythology's stranger pregnancy stories. Dionysus represents the wild, untamed aspects of human nature, the parts of ourselves that civilization tries to control but can never fully suppress. Now, you might notice that's more than 12, and you'd be right. The composition of the Olympian Council shifts depending on which version of the myths you're following. Sometimes Hestia, goddess of the hearth and home, holds a seat. Sometimes it's Dionysus, sometimes Hades is included, sometimes not. Being Lord of the Dead apparently makes you less popular at family gatherings. But here's what's crucial to understand. This isn't just a divine organizational chart. Each of these gods represents fundamental aspects of human experience and natural phenomena. They're not arbitrary. They're archetypal, embodying the forces that shape both our inner lives and the world around us. When ancient Greeks looked at a thunderstorm, they didn't just see meteorological phenomena. They saw Zeus's anger or his passion. When they felt the stirrings of love, that was Aphrodite's influence. When they needed courage in battle, they called upon Ares or Athena. The Olympians also established something new in the cosmic order, the concept of divine justice. Unlike the arbitrary brutality of the Titans or the incomprehensible forces of the primordials, the Olympians operate according to certain principles. They can be petty, yes, and their justice might not always align with human notions of fairness, but there are rules, consequences, patterns of behavior that mortals can learn to navigate. Zeus, for all his flaws, becomes the upholder of oaths, the protector of guests and supplicants, the guarantor of cosmic order. Yes, he has more extramarital affairs than a daytime drama, but he also ensures that the sun rises, the seasons change, and the fundamental laws of reality remain stable. His thunderbolt isn't just a weapon, it's the symbol of divine authority, the ultimate enforcement mechanism for cosmic law. This is also when the interaction between gods and mortals becomes truly significant. The primordials were too vast and alien for meaningful contact. The Titans were too focused on their own power struggles. But the Olympians, they're fascinated by humanity. They fall in love with mortals. They have children with them. They take sides in human conflicts. They demand worship and offer protection in return. This divine interest in humanity will drive much of what comes next in our mythological journey. Because now, with the cosmic order established and the pantheon in place, the stage is set for the age of heroes. Demigods born from unions between Olympians and mortals will perform impossible deeds, face terrible monsters, and live lives that blur the line between human and divine. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. For now, the Olympians settle into their new roles, learning to govern a cosmos that's finally found some stability after eons of chaos and conflict. They establish their palaces on Olympus, create the first divine laws, and begin the long process of figuring out how to manage both their own complicated family dynamics and the increasingly complex world of mortals below. The Age of the Olympians represents mythology's most human chapter. Gods who love and hate, create and destroy, inspire and punish, all with an intensity that makes every story feel personal, immediate, and eternally relevant. These aren't distant cosmic forces. They're characters we can understand, even when we can't predict them. And so the great wheel of mythological time turns once more, carrying us from the primordial chaos through the titanic struggles to this golden age of divine civilization, where gods walk among mortals and heroes are about to be born. As the cosmic web stretches across the universe, binding galaxies together in magnificent filaments of dark matter and light. We arrive at a profound moment in our exploration of the cosmos. We've journeyed through 13.8 billion years of history, from the first whispers of hydrogen in the cosmic dark ages, to the birth of stellar nurseries that would forge the very elements flowing through your veins tonight. But our story doesn't end with distant galaxies or ancient light. It circles back to something far more personal, far more immediate. Every atom in your body, the calcium in your bones, the iron in your blood, the oxygen filling your lungs, was forged in the nuclear furnace of a dying star. You are not merely observing the universe, you are the universe observing itself. You are made of galaxy stuff, shaped by the same forces that carved spiral arms and lit the first stellar beacons in the cosmic dawn. This realization transforms everything. When you look up at the night sky, you're not gazing at something foreign or distant. You're looking home. The stars that died to create you are still out there, their legacy written in your DNA, their ancient light still traveling across space to meet your eyes. The galaxy that cradles our solar system continues its slow, majestic rotation, carrying us through space at hundreds of kilometers per second, yet providing the stable gravitational embrace that allows life to flourish. And still, the universe expands. Dark energy pushes galaxies apart, while dark matter holds them together in an eternal cosmic dance. New stars are born in distant nebulae, planets form around young suns, and perhaps, somewhere in the vast expanse, other worlds harbour their own curious beings, looking up at their own night sky and wondering about their place in this magnificent cosmos. The mysteries we've explored tonight, from the invisible scaffolding of dark matter to the gentle collision awaiting our own Milky Way, remind us that we live in an age of unprecedented discovery. Each new telescope, each breakthrough in our understanding, reveals the universe to be stranger and more beautiful than we ever imagined. We are witnesses to cosmic history unfolding, participants in a story that began with the first light and continues with every breath you take. So as you drift towards sleep tonight, carry with you this cosmic perspective. You are simultaneously infinitesimal and infinite, a brief arrangement of stardust that has somehow learned to contemplate its own origins. The same quantum fluctuations that seeded the first galaxies flow through your thoughts. The same gravitational forces that shape galactic clusters beat in rhythm with your heart. In this vast, expanding universe, where galaxies drift like islands in an ocean of dark energy, where stars are born and die in cycles spanning millions of years, your existence is both utterly improbable and absolutely miraculous. You are the universe's way of looking back at itself with wonder, of asking questions that span cosmic time, of finding meaning in the dance of matter and energy that has been choreographed across 13.8 billion years. Rest well, fellow traveller among the stars. Tomorrow, the universe will still be expanding, galaxies will still be spinning, and you will still carry within you the legacy of ancient supernova and the promise of cosmic futures yet to unfold. You are home among the galaxies, and the galaxies are home within you. Welcome to the entire chronological history of Greek mythology. From the primordial chaos that birthed the cosmos to the heroes who walked between mortals and gods, this is where our story continues. We've witnessed the universe emerge from nothingness, seen the Titans rise and fall, and watched Zeus claim his throne as king of the gods. The Olympian pantheon now rules from Mount Olympus, but their story is far from over. What comes next will shape not only the heavens, but the very fabric of mortal existence. The establishment of the Olympian order marked a new chapter in cosmic history. Zeus, having defeated his father Kronos and the Titans, now faced the monumental task of organizing a stable divine hierarchy. This wasn't simply about power, it was about creating a system that could govern both the celestial and terrestrial realms, for eternity. The division of the cosmos among the three brothers became the foundation of this new order. Zeus claimed dominion over the sky and heavens, becoming the ultimate authority whose thunderbolts could shake mountains and whose word became divine law. Poseidon received the vast oceans, rivers, and all waters, wielding the power to create earthquakes and control the seas that connected all lands. Hades, often misunderstood as receiving the worst portion, actually gained control over the underworld and all the mineral wealth beneath the earth, making him, in many ways, the richest of the gods. But Zeus's role extended far beyond weather control. He became the god of justice, hospitality, and oaths. When mortals swore by Zeus, they invoked the most sacred form of promise. To break such an oath meant facing divine retribution. He established the concept of xenia, sacred hospitality, which became a cornerstone of Greek civilization. Strangers were to be welcomed and protected, for they might be gods in disguise testing mortal virtue. The marriage of Zeus and Hera represented more than a union of king and queen. It symbolized the sacred institution of marriage itself. Yet this divine marriage was famously tumultuous, reflecting the complex nature of both love and power. Hera, as queen of the gods, commanded respect and reverence, governing marriage, family, and the protection of women. Her jealousy towards Zeus's numerous affairs became legendary, but it also represented the fierce protection of marital bonds and family honor. Around these central figures, the other Olympians established their own domains. Athena, born from Zeus's head fully grown and armored, became the goddess of wisdom, strategic warfare, and crafts. Her city, Athens, would become the intellectual heart of the ancient world. Apollo, the radiant god of music, poetry, prophecy, and healing, represented the pinnacle of masculine beauty and artistic achievement. His twin sister Artemis ruled the hunt and the moon, protecting young women and wild animals with equal fierce dedication. Aphrodite, whether born from sea foam or as Zeus's daughter, wielded perhaps the most dangerous power of all, love and desire. Her influence could topple kingdoms and start wars, as it eventually would at Troy. Ares, the god of war's brutal aspects, represented the necessary but terrifying force of conflict. Hephaestus, the master craftsman, forged the weapons and tools that both gods and heroes would wield. Demeter controlled the harvest and the cycles of agriculture that sustained all mortal life. Hermes, the messenger god, became the divine mediator, moving freely between all realms, Olympic, earthly, and underworld. His role as psychopomp, guiding souls to the afterlife, made him perhaps the most travelled of all deities. Finally, Dionysus, whether included in the original 12 or added later, brought the wild, ecstatic, transformative power of wine, theatre, and religious frenzy. This wasn't a static pantheon. The relationships between the gods were dynamic, passionate, and often conflicted. They formed alliances, nursed grudges, fell in love, and schemed against each other with all the intensity of the most dramatic mortal families, except their quarrels could reshape geography and alter the fate of entire civilizations. The gods also established a complex relationship with humanity. Unlike distant, unknowable deities, the Greek gods were intensely involved in mortal affairs. They took lovers among humans, fought alongside mortals in wars, answered prayers, and punished those who offended them. This created a world where the divine and mortal realms constantly intersected, but the gods demanded proper worship and respect. Temples rose across the Greek world, each designed to honor specific deities with appropriate rituals. The concept of hubris, excessive pride that challenged the gods, became central to Greek thought. Mortals who forgot their place in the cosmic order faced swift and often terrible punishment. The oracle at Delphi became Apollo's voice on earth. where priestesses delivered prophecies that guided kings and common people alike. Mystery cults, like those at Eleusis dedicated to Demeter, offered initiates secret knowledge about death and rebirth. Religious festivals combined worship with athletic competitions, theatre and community celebration. Yet even as the Olympians established their reign, new challenges emerged. The earth itself, Gaia, remained restless. She would give birth to new monsters, the giants, who would one day challenge the Olympian order in a conflict called the Gigantomachy. The Titans, imprisoned in Tartarus, still plotted their return, and most significantly, the gods began to interact more deeply with mortals, creating a new generation of beings that would bridge the divine and human worlds. These were the heroes, mortals with divine blood flowing through their veins, possessed of strength, courage, and destiny that would reshape the world. Some were children of Zeus himself, Perseus, who would slay Medusa, Heracles, whose 12 labors would become legend, Helen, whose beauty would launch 1,000 ships. Others descended from different gods, but shared that crucial divine spark that elevated them above ordinary humanity. The age of heroes was dawning, and with it would come the greatest stories ever told. Tales of impossible quests, of monsters defeated and cities founded, of love that transcended death and betrayal that echoed through generations. The gods had established their cosmic order, but now they would learn that even divine plans could be shaped, challenged, and sometimes changed by the actions of those mortals bold enough to dream of greatness. The stage was set for adventures that would span continents and generations, for the emergence of great civilizations, and for conflicts that would test both gods and mortals alike. The primordial chaos had given way to divine order, but from that order would emerge new forms of beautiful, tragic, and eternally compelling chaos. The Olympians ruled supreme, but their greatest challenges and their most magnificent stories still lay ahead in the dawning age of heroes. The age of heroes. The stage was set. Gods ruled from crystalline thrones, their personalities as vast and turbulent as the cosmos itself. Titans brooded in the depths of Tartarus, their ancient grievances echoing through stone and shadow. The world had found its rhythm, mortals tending their fields and cities while immortals shaped weather, fate, and fortune from their celestial heights. But the universe was not content with this neat division between divine and mortal realms. Something new was stirring, something that would bridge these worlds in ways both magnificent and catastrophic. Enter the heroes. These were not ordinary mortals, content to live quiet lives of farming and trade. These were individuals whose very blood carried the spark of divinity, whose deeds would echo through generations, whose stories would become the foundation myths of entire civilizations. The heroic age represents one of the most fascinating chapters in Greek mythology, a time when the line between mortal and immortal blurred, when human potential reached its absolute peak, and when the consequences of divine intervention in mortal affairs became impossible to ignore. The heroes emerged from a very specific circumstance, the gods' inability to keep their distance from humanity. Zeus, despite his thunderous authority and Hera's jealous surveillance, found himself drawn again and again to mortal women. Poseidon's romantic adventures swept across coastlines like tidal waves. Apollo's golden charm left a trail of transformed lovers and divine children. Even the virgin goddesses found ways to influence mortal bloodlines, adopting heroes or blessing them with supernatural abilities. From these divine unions, and the complex family dynamics they created, arose beings who embodied the best and worst of both worlds. Heroes possessed human hearts capable of love, rage, ambition, and despair, but they wielded strength that could topple mountains, wisdom that could unravel divine puzzles, and destinies that could alter the course of history itself. Perseus, son of Zeus and the mortal princess Danae, became the template for heroic adventure. His quest to slay Medusa and rescue Andromeda established patterns that would echo through countless later tales. The impossible task, the divine assistance, the monster that must be faced, the princess who must be saved. But Perseus's story also revealed something crucial about the heroic condition. These demigods were caught between worlds, never fully belonging to either. Too powerful for normal human society, yet too mortal for the divine realm. They were destined to wander, to quest, to prove themselves in increasingly dangerous trials. Heracles, perhaps the most famous hero of all, embodied both the glory and the tragedy of this liminal existence. Son of Zeus and the mortal Alcmen, he possessed strength beyond mortal comprehension, but his life was shaped by Hera's relentless persecution. The 12 labours that defined his legend, slaying the Nemean lion, capturing the golden hind, cleaning the Augean stables, defeating the Hydra, were not glorious adventures, but a form of divine punishment, a penance imposed by the gods for crimes committed in madness that the gods themselves had inflicted upon him. Yet through his suffering, Heracles achieved something remarkable. He became the only hero to successfully transition from mortal to immortal, earning his place among the gods through sheer perseverance and virtue. His story suggested that heroism was not about avoiding suffering, but about how one responded to it. Not about natural gifts, but about what one chose to do with them. Theseus brought heroism into the political realm, showing how individual greatness could serve collective good. His slaying of the Minotaur freed Athens from its terrible tribute to Crete, while his unification of Attica demonstrated how heroic leadership could forge civilization from chaos. Theseus represented the hero as king, the individual whose personal excellence could lift entire peoples. Yet even his story carried warnings. His abandonment of Ariadne, his abduction of Helen, his descent into the underworld, showing how heroic ambition could lead to moral failure and tragic consequences. The hero Jason and his Argonauts represented heroism as collective enterprise. The quest for the Golden Fleece was not a solo adventure, but a collaboration between the greatest heroes of the age: Heracles, Orpheus, Castor and Pollux, Atalanta, and many others. Their journey aboard the ship Argo became a catalogue of heroic abilities and divine interventions, from Orpheus's music that could charm stones to Medea's sorcery that could grant impossible victories. Yet the expedition also revealed the tensions inherent in heroic collaboration: competing egos, conflicting loyalties, and the inevitable fragmentation that comes when too many divine bloodlines converge in one place. Perhaps no heroic story better captures the complexity of this age than the tale of the Trojan War, the great conflict that brought together virtually every major hero of the generation and set them against each other in a struggle that would define Greek cultural memory for millennia. The war began with a divine beauty contest, the judgment of Paris, but quickly became an arena where heroes could display their excellence on the grandest possible stage. Achilles, son of the sea nymph Thetis, and the mortal Peleus, embodied heroic excellence pushed to its absolute limit. His choice between a long, obscure life and a short, glorious one became the defining heroic dilemma. His rage, his prowess in battle, his friendship with Patroclus, and his ultimate humanization through grief all demonstrated how heroes served as vessels for exploring the deepest questions of human existence. What is the value of glory? How do we face mortality? What price are we willing to pay for immortal fame? Odysseus represented a different kind of heroism: intelligence over strength, adaptability over rigid honor, survival over glorious death. His 10-year journey home from Troy became a catalogue of the challenges heroes faced in trying to return to normal life after their great deeds. His encounters with Circe, the sirens Scylla and Charybdis, and the suitors in his own hall showed how heroic identity could become both blessing and curse. How the very qualities that made heroes great could make peaceful existence impossible. The female heroes of this age, figures like Atalanta, Penthesilea, and Medea, complicated simple narratives of heroic masculinity. Atalanta, raised by bears and devoted to Artemis, could outrun and outfight most male heroes. Yet her story was shaped by struggles over marriage and identity that her male counterparts rarely faced. Medea's magical abilities and passionate nature made her one of the most powerful figures in heroic literature. Yet her story became a cautionary tale about the dangers of scorned divine power and foreign sorcery. These heroes did not operate in isolation. They were supported by, challenged by, and ultimately judged by the gods whose blood they carried. Divine parents provided magical weapons, supernatural guidance, and protection from mortal dangers, but they also imposed obligations, curses, and impossible standards. The relationship between heroes and gods became a complex dance of expectation and rebellion, love and resentment, inheritance and independence. The heroic age also saw the emergence of heroic cults and religious practices that would shape Greek spirituality for centuries. Dead heroes became objects of worship, their tombs becoming pilgrimage sites, their stories becoming sacred narratives that communities used to understand their own identities and destinies. The hero cult represented a unique Greek contribution to ancient religion, the idea that exceptional mortals could achieve a form of immortality through the memory and veneration of their communities. Yet for all their glory, the heroes carried within themselves the seeds of their own destruction. Their divine heritage made them capable of extraordinary deeds, but it also made them prone to extraordinary passions, pride, rage, ambition, and desire on a scale that mortal society could barely contain. The heroic age was marked by increasing violence, escalating conflicts, and growing disconnection between divine and mortal realms. The great heroic cycles, the Theban Wars, the Trojan War, the adventures of the Argonauts, all ended in catastrophe, with entire bloodlines extinguished, cities destroyed, and the very fabric of the heroic world torn apart. The Age of Heroes was magnificent but ultimately unsustainable, a brief flowering of human potential that burned too brightly to last. As the heroic age drew to a close, the world began to change. The gods, perhaps exhausted by the chaos their interventions had created, began to withdraw from active participation in mortal affairs. The great bloodlines died out or were dispersed. The monsters that had provided challenges for heroic prowess were slain or driven to the margins of the world. What remained was a world more recognizably human, smaller in scale, more limited in possibility, but also more stable and sustainable. The heroes had served their purpose. They had shown what was possible when divine power met human will, had explored the furthest reaches of courage, wisdom, and excellence, had provided models and cautionary tales that would guide human behavior for generations to come. They had also demonstrated the costs of such greatness, the isolation, the violence, the ultimate inability to find peace or satisfaction in ordinary existence. In bridging the gap between gods and mortals, the heroes had created something new in the cosmic order, the idea that individual excellence could achieve a form of immortality, that human stories could become divine narratives, that mortal actions could have eternal significance. They established patterns of adventure, conflict, and moral choice that would echo through Western literature and thought for millennia. The Age of Heroes represents the culmination of Greek mythology's exploration of human potential. These figures pushed the boundaries of what mortals could achieve while remaining recognizably human in their motivations and limitations. They showed that greatness comes with a price, that power brings responsibility, and that even the most extraordinary individuals must ultimately face the fundamental questions of mortality, meaning, and moral choice. As we prepare to enter the final phase of our mythological journey, we carry with us the legacy of these remarkable figures, heroes who dared to dream beyond mortal limitations, who faced impossible challenges with courage and cunning, and who transformed their individual stories into universal narratives about the human condition. Their age may have ended, but their influence on Greek culture, and through it on all subsequent Western civilization, proved to be truly immortal. The heroes had shown what mortals could become when touched by divine power. Now it remained to be seen what kind of world would emerge when that divine influence began to wane, when mortals had to rely more completely on their own resources, wisdom, and courage. The age of heroes was ending, but the age of human civilization was just beginning. The Babylonian creation myth, Enuma Elish, begins with only primordial waters, Apsu and Tiamat, in peaceful coexistence until younger gods disturb their slumber. Through cosmic battles between generations of deities, the universe emerges from divine conflict, establishing patterns of creation through struggle that echo throughout Greek mythology, where Mesopotamian myths focus on order from chaos through divine kingship. Greek cosmology emphasizes the cyclical nature of power struggles between divine generations. From this primordial foundation emerges the Age of Heroes, marking mythology's transition from cosmic creation to human-scale adventures. Heroes represent the bridge between divine and mortal realms, embodying both superhuman abilities and distinctly human flaws. These semi-divine figures undertake quests that test not only their physical prowess, but their moral character, facing choices that reveal the complexity of virtue and the weight of destiny. The hero's journey follows recognizable patterns across cultures, beginning with a call to adventure that disrupts ordinary life. Perseus receives his impossible quest to slay Medusa. Theseus volunteers to face the Minotaur. Hercules must complete 12 labors to atone for his crimes. Each hero faces trials that strip away illusions and force confrontation with their deepest fears and greatest weaknesses. These challenges serve as crucibles for transformation, where boys become men and mortals approach the divine. What distinguishes Greek heroes from mere warriors is their relationship with fate and choice. Heroes possess agency, yet remain bound by destiny, creating tension between free will and predetermined outcomes. Oedipus tries desperately to avoid his prophesied fate, only to fulfill it through his very attempts at escape. Achilles chooses glory and early death over a long, quiet life, understanding that heroic achievement requires sacrifice. These stories explore the paradox of human agency within cosmic order. The Trojan War represents the culmination of the heroic age, bringing together heroes from across the Greek world in a conflict that tests every virtue and vice. What begins as a quest to reclaim stolen Helen becomes an exploration of honor, pride, loyalty, and the devastating cost of war. The Iliad reveals how even the greatest heroes remain fundamentally human, susceptible to anger, grief, and mortality. Achilles' rage drives the narrative, yet his love for Patroclus ultimately redeems him. Odysseus represents a different kind of heroism, emphasizing cleverness and endurance over brute strength. His 10-year journey home from Troy becomes a masterclass in survival, requiring him to outwit gods, monsters, and his own men. The Odyssey demonstrates that heroism encompasses not just battlefield glory, but the wisdom to adapt, overcome obstacles, and ultimately return home transformed by experience. The stories of Jason and the Argonauts and Theseus and the Minotaur establish templates for heroic adventure that continue influencing storytelling today. These tales feature supernatural helpers, divine interventions, and moral tests that reveal character. The Golden Fleece becomes more than treasure. It represents the prize that validates heroic worth. The labyrinth symbolizes life's complexity, requiring both courage and wisdom to navigate successfully. Heroes also serve as cultural exemplars, embodying the values and ideals of their societies. Hercules' strength and determination inspire those facing seemingly impossible tasks. Perseus' cleverness in defeating Medusa shows that intelligence can triumph over brute force. Theseus' willingness to sacrifice himself for others demonstrates civic virtue and selfless leadership. These stories function as moral instruction wrapped in entertainment. The relationship between heroes and gods reveals the tension between human ambition and divine authority. Heroes often receive divine aid, but must prove themselves worthy through their actions. Gods test heroes through trials that reveal true character, while heroes sometimes challenge divine power through their achievements. This dynamic relationship explores themes of hubris, humility, and the proper relationship between mortal and immortal realms. Female heroes, like Atalanta and the Amazons, challenge traditional gender roles while maintaining heroic virtues of courage, skill, and determination. Their stories explore alternative models of heroism that emphasize different strengths and face unique challenges. These narratives expand the heroic tradition beyond masculine stereotypes while maintaining core themes of transformation through trial. Tragic heroes represent a darker aspect of the heroic tradition, where noble characters face downfall through fatal flaws or impossible circumstances. Oedipus's intelligence becomes his curse as he solves riddles that reveal horrible truths. Medea's passion transforms from love to murderous revenge. These stories warn against the dangers of extremity while evoking sympathy for characters trapped by fate and their own natures. Heroes often bridge the gap between mythical and historical time, representing the last generation to interact directly with gods before the world becomes more mundane. Their stories mark the transition from the age of wonders to the age of mortals, where divine intervention becomes rare and humans must rely increasingly on their own resources. This transition reflects cultural evolution from magical thinking toward more rational worldviews. The legacy of Greek heroes extends far beyond ancient literature, influencing art, philosophy, and psychology. Joseph Campbell's concept of the monomyth draws heavily on Greek heroic patterns. Modern superhero narratives echo ancient themes of power, responsibility, and the burden of being different. These timeless patterns continue resonating because they address fundamental human experiences of growth, challenge, and transformation. The heroic age ultimately represents humanity's coming of age, as mortals learn to navigate a world where gods remain powerful but distant. Heroes demonstrate that ordinary humans can achieve extraordinary things through courage, wisdom, and determination, while accepting the limitations of mortality. Their stories celebrate human potential while acknowledging human frailty, creating narratives that inspire while remaining grounded in realistic psychology. As we reach the twilight of our journey through Greek mythology, we must examine how these ancient stories gradually transformed and evolved, eventually giving way to new cultural paradigms while leaving an indelible mark on human civilization. The mythological world we have explored was never static. It continued to develop and adapt as Greek society itself changed, reflecting new values, beliefs, and understanding of the human condition. The later periods of Greek mythology saw the rise of more complex philosophical interpretations of the ancient stories. As Greek civilization matured, thinkers like Plato and Aristotle began to view the myths not merely as literal accounts of divine activity, but as allegories containing deeper truths about human nature, morality, and the cosmos. This philosophical approach transformed mythology from simple storytelling into a sophisticated system of symbolic meaning that could be interpreted on multiple levels. During the Hellenistic period, as Greek culture spread throughout the Mediterranean and beyond through the conquests of Alexander the Great, these mythological traditions encountered and blended with other cultural mythologies. Egyptian, Persian, and later Roman influences created new syncretic interpretations of the classic Greek stories. The gods and heroes we have followed throughout this chronological journey took on new attributes and meanings as they were adopted and adapted by different cultures. The Roman appropriation of Greek mythology represents perhaps the most significant transformation of these ancient stories. While the Romans maintained the essential narratives and character relationships, they infused them with distinctly Roman values and sensibilities. Zeus became Jupiter, embodying not just cosmic authority, but specifically Roman concepts of imperial power and governance. Ares transformed into Mars, reflecting Roman military culture and the glorification of warfare as a noble pursuit. These adaptations demonstrate how mythology serves as a living system that evolves to meet the needs of each society that embraces it. The mystery religions that flourished during the later periods of antiquity drew heavily upon mythological themes, particularly those surrounding death and rebirth. The Eleusinian mysteries, centered on the story of Demeter and Persephone that we explored earlier, promised to initiate spiritual transformation and eternal life. These religious practices transformed mythological narratives into personal spiritual experiences, showing how the ancient stories continued to provide meaning and hope to individuals seeking deeper understanding of existence and mortality. As Christianity began to spread throughout the Greek and Roman world, it encountered a culture thoroughly saturated with mythological thinking. Early Christian theologians and writers had to grapple with these pre-existing mythological frameworks, sometimes adopting their symbolic language, while rejecting their polytheistic content. The heroic patterns we observed in figures like Perseus, Theseus, and Heracles provided templates that influenced Christian hagiography and the development of saint stories. The cosmic battles between order and chaos that began with the primordial forces found new expression in Christian concepts of good and evil, heaven and hell. The preservation of Greek mythology through the medieval period occurred primarily through scholarly transmission rather than active religious practice. Byzantine scholars maintained copies of the ancient texts, while Islamic scholars translated and commented upon them, ensuring their survival during periods when they might otherwise have been lost. This scholarly preservation meant that when the Renaissance arrived, these mythological treasures were ready to be rediscovered and reinterpreted by a new generation of thinkers and artists. The Renaissance marked a dramatic revival of interest in Greek mythology, as humanist scholars and artists saw in these ancient stories a celebration of human potential and achievement that resonated with their own cultural values. The heroes whose adventures we have followed became models for Renaissance ideals of individual excellence and self-determination. Artists like Botticelli, Michelangelo, and Raphael drew upon mythological themes to create works that combined classical beauty with contemporary spiritual and intellectual concerns. The age of exploration and the scientific revolution brought new perspectives to mythological interpretation. As European explorers encountered previously unknown cultures and their mythologies, scholars began to develop comparative approaches to mythology, seeking universal patterns and themes across different cultural traditions. The stories of Greek heroes undertaking perilous journeys to unknown lands took on new relevance as Europeans themselves embarked upon voyages of discovery that transformed their understanding of the world. The Enlightenment period saw mythology subjected to rational analysis and criticism, with scholars like Voltaire and David Hume questioning the historical accuracy and moral value of the ancient stories. However, this rational critique also led to new appreciation for mythology as a form of early human attempt to understand natural phenomena and social organization. The cosmic struggles between primordial forces that we examined at the beginning of our journey were reinterpreted as primitive scientific theories about the formation of the universe and the development of civilization. The Romantic movement of the late 18th and early 19th centuries brought a renewed appreciation for the emotional and imaginative power of mythology. Poets like Byron, Shelley, and Keats found in the Greek myths a source of inspiration that allowed them to explore themes of beauty, passion, and transcendence that rational Enlightenment thought had neglected. The tragic heroes whose stories we have followed provided models for romantic concepts of the noble individual struggling against fate and social convention. The development of psychology in the 19th and 20th centuries opened entirely new avenues for mythological interpretation. Sigmund Freud saw in the myths evidence for universal psychological patterns, coining terms like the Oedipus complex that drew directly upon the tragic stories we have explored. Carl Jung developed the concept of archetypes, suggesting that mythological figures represent universal patterns of human experience that appear across cultures and throughout history. The heroes, gods, and monsters of Greek mythology became psychological symbols representing different aspects of the human psyche. Modern anthropological and sociological approaches have revealed how the mythological narratives we have followed serve important social functions, providing models for behavior, explanations for social institutions, and mechanisms for cultural transmission. The coming-of-age stories of young heroes, the establishment of divine authority, and the ongoing tensions between individual desires and social obligations all reflect fundamental human concerns that remain relevant across cultures and time periods. The influence of Greek mythology on modern literature, film, and popular culture demonstrates its continued vitality and relevance. From James Joyce's Ulysses to the Percy Jackson series, from Disney's Hercules to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, contemporary creators continue to draw upon the rich narrative traditions we have explored. These modern adaptations often update the ancient stories to address contemporary concerns while maintaining their essential emotional and symbolic power. In the realm of language and conceptual thinking, Greek mythology has provided Western culture with an extensive vocabulary for describing human experiences and natural phenomena. Terms like narcissism, hubris, Odyssey, and Achilles' heel derive directly from the mythological narratives we have examined and continue to shape how we understand and discuss human behavior. The gods whose stories we have followed live on in the names of planets, psychological conditions, and countless cultural references that permeate daily life. The educational value of Greek mythology extends far beyond its historical significance. These stories provide frameworks for understanding fundamental human experiences like love, betrayal, ambition, sacrifice, and mortality. The moral complexities we observed in the actions of gods and heroes offer rich material for ethical reflection and discussion. The narrative patterns and character archetypes provide tools for understanding not only ancient literature, but also contemporary storytelling across all media. As we conclude this comprehensive journey through the chronological history of Greek mythology, we can appreciate how these ancient stories represent far more than mere entertainment or primitive religious belief. They constitute a sophisticated system of symbolic thinking that has proven remarkably durable and adaptable across millennia. From the primordial chaos with which we began to the complex heroic narratives that followed, Greek mythology provides a lens through which humans have consistently sought to understand their place in the cosmos and their relationships with one another. The cyclical nature of many mythological themes reflects deep human awareness of patterns in both natural and social life. The seasonal cycles embodied in stories like that of Persephone, the generational conflicts between Titans and Olympians, and the recurring patterns of heroic adventure all speak to fundamental rhythms of human experience. These patterns continue to resonate because they reflect genuine aspects of how humans experience time, change, and meaning. The enduring appeal of Greek mythology also lies in its remarkable psychological sophistication. The gods and heroes we have encountered are neither perfect nor completely flawed, but rather complex beings whose motivations and actions reflect the full spectrum of human possibility. This psychological realism, combined with the heightened dramatic circumstances of mythological narrative, creates stories that feel both familiar and extraordinary, both timeless and immediate. The geographic and cultural spread of Greek mythological influence testifies to its universal appeal. From ancient Rome to medieval Europe, from Renaissance Italy to modern America, these stories have found new audiences and new interpretations across vastly different cultural contexts. This adaptability suggests that Greek mythology touches upon fundamental aspects of human experience that transcend specific cultural boundaries. The scholarly study of Greek mythology has also contributed significantly to the development of numerous academic disciplines. Comparative mythology, anthropology, psychology, literary criticism, and religious studies have all been enriched by engagement with these ancient narratives. The methodological approaches developed for analyzing mythological texts have proven valuable for understanding cultural expressions across many different societies and time periods. Looking toward the future, Greek mythology seems likely to continue evolving and finding new expressions as human culture itself changes. Digital media, virtual reality, and artificial intelligence offer new possibilities for experiencing and interpreting these ancient stories. The fundamental human concerns that mythology addresses, questions about identity, purpose, mortality, and meaning, remain as relevant today as they were in ancient Greece. The democratization of storytelling through digital platforms has made mythological themes accessible to creators and audiences worldwide, leading to new interpretations that reflect contemporary global perspectives. These modern adaptations often address issues of gender, race, and social justice that were not central concerns in the original ancient contexts, demonstrating how mythology continues to serve as a vehicle for exploring current human concerns. The environmental crisis facing contemporary civilization has also brought renewed relevance to mythological themes about the relationship between humans and nature. The stories of gods and goddesses associated with natural phenomena, the consequences of hubris and excess, and the importance of balance and harmony offer valuable perspectives on current ecological challenges. As we reach the end of our chronological journey through Greek mythology, we can appreciate how these ancient stories have provided a continuous thread connecting past and present, individual and community, human and divine. They remind us that storytelling itself is one of the most fundamental human activities, a way of making sense of experience and transmitting wisdom across generations. The complete chronological history of Greek mythology reveals a sophisticated and enduring system of human meaning-making that continues to enrich our understanding of ourselves and our world. From the primordial chaos of the beginning to the complex heroic narratives of the classical period, these stories offer timeless insights into the human condition while remaining eternally capable of new interpretation and application. In examining this vast mythological landscape, we have witnessed humanity's ongoing effort to understand its place in the cosmos, to define heroism and virtue, to grapple with mortality and meaning, and to create narratives that can guide and inspire future generations. Greek mythology stands as a testament to the power of story, to illuminate truth, to the enduring relevance of ancient wisdom, and to the fundamental human need to find meaning and purpose in existence. As we reach the end of our journey through the vast tapestry of Greek mythology, we find ourselves confronting a remarkable paradox. These ancient stories, born from the minds of people who lived thousands of years ago, continue to pulse with life in our modern world. The chronological progression we have traced, from the primordial chaos to the complex interactions between gods and mortals, reveals something profound about the human condition itself. The cyclical nature of Greek mythology mirrors the patterns we observe in our own lives and societies. Just as Uranus fell to Kronos and Kronos to Zeus, we witness the eternal dance of old giving way to new, of established powers being challenged by emerging forces. This pattern extends beyond mythology into the very fabric of human civilization. Political systems rise and fall, cultural movements emerge and evolve, and each generation must grapple with the legacy of those who came before while forging their own path forward. The psychological depth embedded within these mythological narratives demonstrates an understanding of human nature that remains startlingly accurate today. The Greeks recognized that heroism and tragedy are often two sides of the same coin. Perseus's triumph over Medusa, Heracles' 12 labors, and Odysseus's long journey home all contain elements of both glory and suffering. These heroes succeed not despite their flaws, but because their struggles with pride, fear, and mortality make them authentically human. Modern psychology has given us new vocabulary to describe these patterns, but the fundamental insights remain unchanged. The influence of Greek mythology on Western literature, art, and thought cannot be overstated. From Dante's Divine Comedy to Shakespeare's plays, from Renaissance paintings to contemporary films, the archetypal patterns established in Greek myths continue to provide the scaffolding for creative expression. The hero's journey, as identified by scholars like Joseph Campbell, finds its clearest early expression in Greek mythological narratives. These stories establish templates for character development, plot structure, and thematic exploration that writers and artists still draw upon today. In our contemporary world, Greek mythology has found new relevance in unexpected places. Environmental movements have rediscovered the wisdom embedded in stories about the relationship between humanity and nature. The myth of Pandora's box resonates with discussions about technology and unintended consequences. The story of Icarus serves as a cautionary tale about hubris in an age of rapid technological advancement. Climate change discussions often invoke mythological imagery of divine punishment for human overreach, echoing the themes of balance and consequence that permeate Greek mythological thinking. The educational value of Greek mythology extends far beyond entertainment or cultural literacy. These stories provide a framework for discussing complex moral and philosophical questions. The tension between fate and free will, explored through characters like Oedipus and Cassandra, remains one of the central debates in philosophy, neuroscience, and ethics. The concept of divine justice, as portrayed in the actions of Zeus and other Olympians, offers a lens through which to examine questions of fairness, punishment, and social order. Religious and spiritual movements have also drawn from the well of Greek mythology. The archetypal approach to understanding divinity, where gods represent different aspects of human experience and natural phenomena, has influenced neo-pagan movements and psychological approaches to spirituality. The Greek understanding of multiple divine personalities, managing different aspects of existence, offers an alternative to monotheistic frameworks, providing a more nuanced view of the complexity of existence. The technological age has given Greek mythology new platforms for expression and interpretation. Video games, graphic novels, and digital media have introduced these ancient stories to new generations, often updating them with contemporary sensibilities while maintaining their essential themes. The interactive nature of modern media allows audiences to engage with mythological narratives in ways that previous generations could not imagine, creating personalized heroes' journeys and moral choices that echo the dilemmas faced by ancient protagonists. As we consider the future of Greek mythology, it becomes clear that these stories possess an almost infinite capacity for reinterpretation and renewal. Each generation finds new meanings in ancient narratives, discovering fresh relevance in timeless themes. The gods and heroes of Greece continue to evolve, not as static relics of the past, but as living symbols that adapt to address contemporary concerns while maintaining their essential wisdom. The chronological development of Greek mythology, from chaos to cosmos, from titans to gods, from divine conflicts to human struggles, reveals a sophisticated understanding of existence that encompasses both the grandest cosmic questions and the most intimate personal challenges. These stories remind us that we are part of a larger narrative, connected to both the natural world and to each other through shared experiences of love, loss, triumph, and tragedy. As we reach the end of our journey through Greek mythology's vast timeline, we see how these ancient stories created a foundation that continues to shape human understanding today. From the primordial chaos that birthed the universe to the complex family dynamics of the Olympians, Greek mythology provided explanations for natural phenomena, human behavior, and the fundamental questions of existence that still resonate with us. The evolution from primordial deities to titans to Olympians reflects humanity's own development, from primitive fears to sophisticated understanding of power, responsibility, and consequence. Zeus's rise to power wasn't just about divine succession, it represented the triumph of order over chaos, justice over tyranny, and the establishment of cosmic law. Yet the Greeks understood that even divine power came with limitations and moral complexities. The Age of Heroes marked perhaps the most crucial transition in mythological history. These figures, caught between divine heritage and mortal limitations, embodied the human condition itself. Perseus, Theseus, Heracles, and countless others showed that greatness required not just strength or divine favor, but courage, wisdom, and the willingness to face impossible odds. Their stories taught that heroism wasn't about perfection, but about rising above circumstances and choosing to act despite fear and uncertainty. What makes Greek mythology eternally relevant is its psychological depth. These weren't just entertainment or primitive explanations for natural events. They were profound explorations of human nature. The myths revealed truths about jealousy, ambition, love, revenge, and redemption that transcend cultural boundaries. They showed that gods and mortals alike struggled with the same fundamental challenges of existence. From ancient Greece to modern psychology, from Renaissance art to contemporary films, these mythological patterns continue to inform our understanding of narrative, character, and meaning. Carl Jung's archetypes, Joseph Campbell's hero's journey, and countless literary and cinematic works draw from the wellspring of Greek mythological wisdom. As civilizations rose and fell, the essential truths embedded in these stories persisted. They remind us that while the external world changes dramatically, the internal landscape of human experience remains remarkably consistent. Greek mythology's chronological history isn't just about the past. It's a mirror reflecting our eternal struggles, aspirations, and the timeless quest to understand our place in the cosmos. Thanks for watching so far. We're diving deep into the world of Greek mythology, and there's so much more to uncover. If you're enjoying this journey through ancient tales and tranquil sounds, I invite you to stay with us until the very end. Let the soothing narrative and calming atmosphere guide you to a place of peace, perfect for a restful night's sleep.